Welcome to Inking on the Fly. My name is Amy Jasper. Hello. Um, Today I get to share with you a paper pumpkin alternative project that I designed for you. I'm using the March Paper Pumpkin Kit. If you don't know what paper pumpkin is, oh goodness gracious! If you don't know what paper pumpkin is, it is this. It is a burst of creativity. Basically, it's a monthly subscription that goes to your door every month and gives you a creative escape. So that's what it is. And usually you make eight, 8 cards, 9 cards, depending on what the projects are that they give for us that month. You can get a prepaid subscription. I can get that, like purchase your 3 months or 6 months or 12 months or 1 month in one purchase, and then they just come each month. Or you can just pay $30 a month and have that happen so that it's kind of budgeted for you, I guess, is the benefit of that. I always get the 12-month because it's a lot of money to fork out at once, but you buy 11 and you get one for free. Plus, if you prepay with $300, that gives you $30 of host rewards with your purchase. So you get some free stuff, which is always good. So that's the route I go because I know that I'm going to do monthly. So I might as well just go ahead and get all the benefits of that and fork out the cash at the beginning. It's a lot at once, but if you know that you love paper pumpkin, then it's a really good way to go. Okay, so the March Paper Pumpkin came with a present in it. So it came with all of these masks for us to play with. So I haven't played with them terribly much, but I have a little bit. And they also came with sponges, and it came with these all attached in a big circle. So then you had one big circular sponge, and I cut it into the 6 sponges. And I'm going to be using, for my project today, I'm going to be using the Calypso Coral ink. So Calypso Coral was the ink spot that actually came with the kit this month. And then I'm going to use, I'll make sure I get all my colors sorted out here. This one is Seaside Spray. It's one of our Stampin' Up! Colors that's actually retiring, so I'm going to give it a nice farewell and give it some use. It's not my favorite color, I have to admit, but it works really well with this card. And I just want to grab a piece of scrap paper so that I can get messy and not mess up my nice clean grid paper I just put out. So I don't want to mess it up. I just want to make sure this is actually the color I want. Yes, so that is Mossy Meadow. So that's the other color I'm using. Okay. So to use these, I've already got ink on my fingers. To use this particular mask, this is the one I'm going to show to you today. It's a little daunting when you just look at it, but when you realize how it's designed, you suddenly, it's amazing. It's actually designed quite smartly. I don't know what's happening with my hands. I climbed a tree yesterday, so I kind of injured myself, but I'm okay now. I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. So I'm going to show you how to use just a couple uses. Well, I'm going to use this, and you're going to see how I use it for this card. But it just sort of will open up your eyes to the opportunities and what this might offer for you. So I am going to start out with using this top piece. And I purposely started with a piece of cardstock that is 3.5 inches wide because it can slide into my mask. Makes it easy to use. So I'm going to slide that into my mask. And I'm going to use this top portion of my mask and I'm going to create a sky. So I'm going to, there's a couple ways you can do this. So lots of people will tack their paper down really nicely with tape or post-it note or something. I'm I don't know. I don't know why I don't do that. Sometimes I do, but I just hold it down. I don't know. If you don't trust that you're going to hold it down very well, then tape it. But I don't find that I need to tape it usually. So I have it about, is it about halfway that I want it? I'm not even sure. I'm looking at my sample that I created. I'm not going to show you my sample yet, though. I want it to be a surprise. I'm going to put this up. I don't know. I'm guessing. Sort of guessing. So I'm just holding that there, and I'm going to use this this just scrap piece of paper and hold everything in place with one hand while I sponge with the other. I need to get my sponge out. Get that ready. So I find with these sponges, you get a lot of like little nibbly marks. Like you can even see on my sample here, not my sample, my scrap, you get a lot of like uneven inking, I guess is what I would call it, which has its place, of course, in variety of techniques. But sometimes we want it to not have, we want it to blend out better, which is what the blending brushes are for, or even the daubers will be a little bit of a less of that mottled kind of look. But these are the sponges they gave us in the little present for us, so I am going to use them. So what I find that works the best for me with using these sponges is I have it cut in this triangle so that I can have something to grab, and then I can press it into the ink pad, and then I will use another piece of paper just to get off some of the excess, like the darker areas, and because you can always add more ink, you can't take it away, right? So we want to start with less and then work our way up. I want to create a bit of a like a sunset sky. So when I use my sponges, I don't start on my paper that I'm working on, that I want to keep. I start off the paper because the first spot that you put down is usually going to be quite intense, and so you have more control if you start off the paper. So I'm going to start on my scrap piece, and I'm going to do little circles. I'm going to just really focus on that horizon edge, and you can't really, like, I'm not putting down a lot of ink. I've stamped off a whole bunch of it already, so it's not a lot of ink on my sponge. So I'm going quite light, but I'm just really focusing on that edge to start with, because I want that mountain to be more pronounced, and I want the color to be darker at the mountain. So then I can, now that a lot of ink has come off already in my process, and I didn't have very much to start with, now I can blend out that ink a bit more. And now you can see I'm blending it like it's not a big smooshy mess like this. It's blending nicer now that there's less ink on my sponge. I think that's kind of the trick with the sponges, is you want less. You don't want a lot of ink. You want it to be a soft inking. So that's pretty good. I think I'll work with that. Now I can pull this apart, and then I have a sponged sky. It's quite pretty. So now I want to turn that sponged, the white part, into a mountain. So I'm going to set aside my Calypso Coral ink, and I'm going to pick up the Seaside Spray and the sponge that I've already designated for Seaside Spray. You can rinse the color out of these sponges, but over time they will it starts to break down. So I try not to wash them if I can avoid that, but if I need to, they're easy to rinse. Hi Eunice. I don't even know what the day looks like. I'm sure it's a beautiful day out there. I have a sliver of sunlight coming in from under my blinds, but I haven't been out yet. I need to. I will get out later today. Okay, so then we're going to create the mountainscape. So this mask has two sections that are almost identical. For some reason, there's a little weird blip on this side. I'm not sure why that is, but anyway, we'll just ignore that. But so these match, they're the same. So I'm going to now use this one down here and slide it into my paper, over my paper. And I'm going to slip this mask down so it covers up my Calypso Coral ink. Hi, Judy. Yeah, sometimes having just those little tips and tricks, right? They help. So I'm going to slide this down, and I want to cover up the Calypso Coral. It's okay if there's a little sliver of it showing, and it's also okay if you end up with a sliver of white. That's not, you know, the end of the world. But I'm just going to have, I think I'm going to have just so that I can just barely see the hint of the Calypso Coral underneath there. Oops. And then again, I can tape it down if I want to with Post-it note, or Post-it tape actually works really nicely. Anything that won't tear after. What's another thing? Those washi tape. Washi tape's another one people like to use. So then I'm going to cover up this section up here because I don't want to accidentally get ink up there. So I'm going to cover it up with my scrap piece of paper. Again, you can use Post-it notes if you don't want to have to hold everything down, because it can shift by accident, but even with Post-it notes, I suppose it can shift too. Okay, so now I've got my Seaside Spray ink, and I've got the ink on there. I'm going to sponge off some of the excess and work with less. Less ink is better, easier to control. And I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm just going to focus on trying to get ink just along the edge of my mountain range. So again, starting off the paper and working down and really just following that mountain ridge. And I do circles. I don't know that you have to do circles, but I find, I don't know, it sort of blends more how I like it to blend if I do circles. So you can now, I don't know if you can see, it's hard to see, but I've added a bit. You've got a bit of that Seaside Spray that will give us a mountain range. I don't know if I want it heavier than that or not. So when you have less ink on here, once you, like if you find that you're sponging away and you feel like nothing's really moving from the sponge to the paper, you can press a little harder. That just means there's less ink on your sponge. So I'm wiggling my table. So I'm pressing a lot harder now and using my fingers to get a focal point of sponge. And I think I've picked up, so my scrap paper here has some Mossy Meadow on it, and I think I've picked up a little bit of that, and it's pulled down onto my mountain range, but I don't mind. I think that's going to be fine, but just be aware if you're using a light color and you want it to stay true, make sure your scrap paper is clean as well. Okay, so let's lift that up. So I only focused on the ridge. So pretty cool, I think. So there's a little bit of white showing, but it gives sort of, I don't know, it's like a highlight where the sun is hitting, maybe. I don't know. We'll go with that. So that's a good start. So now I want to take some, I'm just going to use a baby wipe or a wet, like a damp cloth or paper towel or something, and just take a minute to make sure that your mask is clean before we move on to the next one. It's just good to do that once in a while. Make sure it's dry. So then I want to put some accents on my mountain range. That's what these are. So that one I can just lay right on top of, oops, how about we have it the right way? Because it's going to follow the mountain range. So I'm going to put that right on top of that mountain that I just created. So I'm following. I don't know how well you can see that. Maybe I'll zoom in for you here. So underneath the mask, you can see the mountain range, right there, the dark mountain range showing through the mask. So I'm going to make sure that mask is kind of lined up with that mountain range. Okay, and then I'm going to zoom out again. Okay, so then again, I want to hold it down. Now because I was getting some transfer, I'm just going to flip that over. The ink is dry on this side. It's just when you're using wet ink and pulling wet ink around, like wet ink over top of dry ink, it just pulls that dry, it moistens that dry ink again, and then it will transfer. So I'm just going to use this side now. So again, I'm holding it down. I'm still using Seaside Spray for my ink. Holding that in position, or use a tape or whatever you need to do. And this time I'm going to use a little bit of a different technique. These are quite small holes and they're kind of jagged. So the rubbing technique makes me a little uncomfortable. I don't want to tear my sponge up. And I found it was kind of hard to get the ink in place when I did that. So this time, for this section, I'm just going to press, and I'm using that soft, what is it? Seaside Spray ink. So now I'm pressing the ink, so I don't care how much. I want a fair bit of ink, so I don't have to scrub any ink off. I'm just going to press it into those mountain range holes, and that will create a little bit more definition to my mountains. So then I can pull that away. Dun, 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 dun. So now I have a little bit more going on with my mountains. And then I'm going to add another ridge. And this one I'm going to use this ridge here. It's more of a rolling hill at the base of the mountain. So again, slide that in and position it where you want. I'm going to angle mine a little bit like that. And this time I'm going to use Mossy Meadow ink. Oh, this one is so, look how dirty my ink pad is. I need to get in there and give it a good cleaning. It's very messy. So this is Mossy Meadow. Mossy Meadow is quite dark, so I'm a little nervous that I'm going to end up wrecking this, but we'll see. We'll do the best we can. I do have ink on here right now. I didn't clean that off, but that's okay because I am going to protect my fingers by putting this on top and hold my paper down that way. So again, pick up your ink, sponge off excess. It seems counterintuitive, but it really makes a difference. And then again, focus on the ridges first, starting off your good paper. So start on your scrap paper, moving over. I'm just going to focus on the edge because I want that edge to be the darker section. And I can add more pressure and more focal, what do you call it? Focus some sponge together. I don't know. That's what I'll say. And really work that ridge. And then once I have a nice crisp ridge with that darker tone, then I can blend in my Mossy Meadow. And it slipped, so I'm going to stop because I'm going to end up with a mess if I don't. And there we have a grassy mountain in front of our wintry mountain. This is a common kind of a thing that we see out here in BC, right? Lots of mountains to look at. Snow on the mountains. I'm going to just clean this off before I carry on. Make sure it's put away clean. And I'm done with that. And then we'll make this into a card. All right, I'll show you this close up. Oops. My fingers are gooey, not gooey, inky. Okay, so close up, you can see now I have a blue kind of mountain range in the background and a darker mossy meadow range or rolling hills in the foreground. There's a bit of a splotch here that I'm not loving, but that's okay. I think I can work with that. And I could make my sky a little heavier, I think, but I think I'll leave it and we'll just see where we end up. Okay, so sometimes when I sponge, I end up with like it's a bit of a darker edge because the sponge catches the edge and creates a bit of a darker edge when I'm sponging. So sometimes I will stop and I'll just trim that off, which I actually am going to do right now. So I have my handy dandy little baby trimmer here. And I don't need to trim much off. It's just that tiniest bit. So I'm not even going to measure. I'm just going to try to trim off as little as I can. A little bit more. And this side seems not too bad. There's a little bit there, but it's not too bad. So I think that's okay. So there, I just trimmed off that little bit of a darker kind of edge that ended up on my card. Okay, the next thing that I want to do with this piece of paper, so that's all our beautiful sponging. So now I'm going to take, what am I going to take? I have a piece of Old Olive. What do you clean ink off your fingers with? You know, sometimes it doesn't come off. Well, it does eventually. Eventually it will come off. So soap and water is your first bet. I often just I'll have baby wipes in my stamp room. That helps. I've seen people use hand sanitizer, which we have a lot of these days, and that seems to help as well. But you basically, yeah, do what you can do. But I find, yeah, if washing your hands makes a big difference. Okay. Yes, so we have a mat of Old Olive. This is only a little bit bigger than the piece that I have cut here. So this piece was 3.5 by 4 3/4 inches. This one is just a 1/8 of a size bigger. So it ends up being 3 5/8. Better double check. 3 5/8 by 4 7/8. So just 1/8 of an inch bigger, and that will create a 1/16 inch border all the way around. So I'm going to attach that together with my handy dandy almost empty. Let's grab one that's not almost empty. There we go. I have like these laying around half empty. Okay, so there's my Tombow liquid glue. So I've got a nice mat, and it coordinates with the Mossy Meadow, but it's not the same color as the Mossy Meadow, which I quite like. Otherwise my Mossy Meadow edge might just sort of hide in, like blend in with my background too much. So it's nice to have something that coordinates but doesn't match the same exactly. What else do I want for this? Oh, so we have, I'm going to use a card base from the Paper Pumpkin kit and a couple of other pieces as well. So this is one of the bases that came with the Paper Pumpkin kit. So that's the Pretty Peacock, which is, I'm so sad. This is one of the one in color that I'm really sad that it's leaving us. I'm going to miss it very much. I love that color. A couple of other things that come with the kit were there's a little piece of Old Olive, just like a strip of Old Olive paper, and the Pretty Peacock die cut trees. So pretty. So those are going to go on here. So I am going to I'm going to just put these guys so that they're just overlapping the edge a little bit. I'm not really sure if I want this one in behind or in front. I think I want it behind. That's just going to give a little bit of an edge, and it hides some of the untidy. I've got a little bit, some untidy little sponging marks. I'm not worried about that one. It's just some darker grass or trees or something. That's okay. Yeah, so this one I'm going to put down, I think flat. I haven't really decided what I want to do exactly, but I think I'm put this one down flat. It's just going to kind of act as a final ridge to tidy up all that sponging. I need to decide where I want my trees first before I decide where to put this one. I think there's good. So I'll pop this little guy down, and I want him to scooch off the edge just the tiniest bit, and I want it straight, so I'm going to use my grid paper to help me kind of get a better visual of what straight will look like. And then my trees I'm going to put on with dimensionals. And the mini dimensionals are handy because they fit a little bit better in the tiny little bits of our smaller pieces of our tree. But I am going to have to trim a couple of them. Just because I want to make sure some of these, I want to make sure these trees are going to stay put. So I want to make sure that they're all attached nicely and thoroughly, because they are kind of delicate too. All right, I think that's good. So these guys, yes, Eunice, the darker green area looks like an indistinct undulation in the distant hillside. I love that. I love your phrasing. That's awesome. Okay, this little guy is going to pop over here. So I'm going to have it level with this Old Olive. My brain stopped. Come on, brain. Strip of paper. Thank you, brain. Okay. And I just want it over the edge a little bit, same as this side was. A little hard to see both sides. Actually, I want it a little lower. I think I want it a little lower. I'll go a little lower. There, that's better. I like that. Now I've got my trees. Oh, it's sticking. Ugh. A little bit of a dimensional stuck there. That's okay. I'm going to put more dimensionals on the back of this, so I'm just going to pop a dimensional on top of that one so that I don't have any sticky exposed. Okay, and then I'll carry on. So then I want to do some stamping. So I've decided to use one of the stamps in the kit. Says, "May your journey through life," you can't see it. You still can't see it. I tried. Just take my word for it. May your journey through life take you to many new and exciting places. So I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to stamp that on this white piece on the front of my card. If I mess up, that's okay because I can just get another, I'll just cut a piece of white and make it do it better on a separate piece of paper and put it over top. But I would like to have it just on there. So I'm going to hope for the best, but this is a photopolymer stamp, so it's clear. And I can use my grid paper to help me make sure it's straight. And the photopolymer makes it so I can see. So that's all good things. And I make sure it's straight and dun, 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 dun. Okay, I think we're doing good. Yay! All right, and the crafters rejoiced, right? Okay, last thing I want to add to this is some of the twine that we were given in the kit as well. So let's do a little bit of twine before we attach this to the card base. I think I want the bow, I don't know, maybe I'll try it on the right side. My first instinct is to put it below the trees, but let's see what it looks like over here. I can always move it. I don't know, I think that might work. That just might work. As long as all my tails behave themselves. What is this one doing? It wants to go flying into the sky, but I don't want it to. Oh, you know what else we could add? Speaking of flying in the sky. And I don't know if I want it over there now. Dag nabbit. Okay. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. Flying in the sky though, let's add some birds up here. We've got these cute little birds. Might as well use them because they're cute. So those in the kit, you've got these little birds. Got to make sure their bodies are in the right spot, and we're going to pop them in the sky. I think we'll put them over by the tree so that we have a little more, so that they're not giant birds way over there in the distance, but they look like our eyes will, the trees will make it appear that they're actually close and they're not giant birds. I don't know if that even makes sense. We'll put them over here. Cuteness. Still look a little giant. That's okay. All right. And then last but not least, and kind of the most important thing, is we need to attach it to our card base. So I'm going to use some dimensionals. Oh, you like the bow on the right side, Eunice. That's good because that helps me. That gives me the affirmation that I need to, you know, just be okay with it. Because sometimes I struggle with that. Sometimes I'm like, well, it looks good here. It also looks good there. So I don't know. And then I take too much time. So it's nice to have someone say, nope, it's good. Do it. Thank you, Arlene. Nice to have you watching. You know, it makes it so easy when we have coordinating ink and stamps. And Stampin' Up! Gives us such awesome things to work with. So I think also the bow on the right with the birds up on the left, it just kind of gives you a nice, we've got a nice triangle going on, which is, I don't know, a graphic art thing, apparently. All right, so then we can pop this together. And I really like the old olive with the pretty peacock. I think that's super pretty. And there it is, our Paper Pumpkin alternative card design for the March 2021 Paper Pumpkin kit called Here's to You. This one here. And we used the one of the masks anyways. I need to play around with the masks more and get some more ideas. Because because they're cool. They're super cool. This one's going to be similar to the mountain, where you'll piece things together and block things off as you sponge. But these ones, this one I have to say before I go, this mask here, remember with the little pieces, when I did this section on this mask, I pressed instead of smushed. These are technical terms, folks. I pressed in the ink instead of rubbing the ink on. So this mask is another one that you can't really rub the ink on, because when you rub, these guys just move around. So again, you want to press, and you'll get a darker color, and you're going to get more of that sponged flecks of color in there. But if you do it dark, I did a little piece. I was playing around, but now I don't know where I put it. No, I think it's, oh, maybe here. Oh, yeah. So here's a piece I played with that sun. I didn't like my colors that I chose, but the sun and the sky, I just did a pressing, and I worked my way toward the outside edge of those rays. So they do blend a little bit, but you can see there is sort of like a more of a noticeable speckling. But that's a technique. Like, that's not a bad thing. It's just I'm so used to trying to blend out my edges and make it really, really a soft blend. So this is just different for me, but it works well. So I'm going to play around with that some more later. So thanks for watching, guys. I think that's all I needed to share with you today. Thank you so much for just coming by and visiting with me. It's so nice to be able to share what I love with other people who love it too.